The prison was a fortress of despair, its thick stone walls standing like an eternal reminder that freedom was not for everyone. Inside one of the damp, dimly lit cells lived a man whose name had long been forgotten by society. Unlike many of the others who had surrendered to monotony, he carried a secret determination. The walls that held him were not invincible in his eyes, they were obstacles, and obstacles could be broken. It began with a single thought. Late one night, when the guard's footsteps echoed faintly down the corridors and silence fell heavy across the prison, he pulled out a small shard of metal he had scavenged from an old bed frame. At first, his efforts seemed futile. The wall was solid, unyielding, and every scrape of his makeshift tool was swallowed by the darkness. But he persisted. Night after night, he chipped away, careful never to let the sound grow too loud, never to draw unwanted attention. The tiny scratches of metal against stone became the rhythm of his secret life. Weeks turned into months. His fingers bled, his nails cracked, and his arms trembled with fatigue, but his spirit never broke. By day, he played the role of a weary inmate, keeping his head low, blending into the routines of prison life. By night, he transformed into something else, a man possessed by the idea of freedom. To hide his work, he collected the fine dust and broken pieces of mortar, tucking them into his mattress or scattering them into the cracks of the floor. Over the hole, he placed an old poster of a landscape, its faded colors hiding the truth that grew larger each passing night. The season shifted outside, though he could only mark time by the coldness of the stone and the change in the smell of the air that crept through the narrow barred window. Each winter's chill and summer's heat carried with it a whisper of the freedom he longed for. The hole grew, inch by painstaking inch, until one night he felt the air change. A draft slipped through the cracks, cool and refreshing. His heart thundered in his chest. He was close, so close that he could taste freedom on his tongue. On the final night, his hands shook not from exhaustion but from anticipation. The last fragment of stone gave way, and before him lay a narrow passage to the world beyond. For a long moment, he simply stared, unable to believe it was real. His entire body trembled with hope. He pushed his small belongings aside, pressing his shoulder into the opening, wriggling through with desperate determination. The wall scraped against his skin, tearing at his clothes, but he felt none of it. All he could think of was the life waiting for him on the other side, and then, he emerged. The air was fresh, the night sky wide and endless above him. A smile spread across his dirt-streaked face, his heart pounding with victory. He had done the impossible. For the first time in years, he believed he was free. But just as the thought solidified in his mind, a harsh beam of light burned into his eyes. Then another. And another. He froze, his body stiff with shock as shapes emerged from the shadows, police officers, armed and waiting. Their expressions were cold, unyielding, as if they had known all along. The sound of boots crunching against gravel filled the night, and a voice broke through the silence. "We've been expecting you," the chief officer said, his tone calm, almost amused. The prisoner's smile collapsed into despair. His knees grew weak as the officers advanced, grabbing him roughly and snapping cold metal handcuffs around his wrists. The reality hit him with the weight of 1,000 stones. His great escape had been no secret. The guards had been watching, waiting, letting him dig his own grave of false hope. Every night he thought he was invisible, but in truth, he had been performing for unseen eyes. As they dragged him back toward the looming prison gates, he looked over his shoulder at the hole he had poured his soul into. To him, it had been a tunnel to salvation. To them, it was nothing more than bait in a cruel game. His heart ached, not just from failure, but from betrayal by his own dreams. The months of work, the blood, the sweat, the desperate prayers, all of it had led him back into chains, and as the prison swallowed him once more, he realized the bitter truth: freedom had never been within reach. The wall he broke was not a doorway, but a trap. In chasing escape, he had ignored the silent truth whispered by every stone around him. Inside prison, nothing goes unseen. The walls themselves have ears, and they had listened to him all along.